Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vulnerability Hangover. I'm your host, Nikki, and this is our emotional support pup, Enzo. And today we have a very special guest.
Hello, my name is Bobby.
We are going to be diving into another personal development story. I'm not going to spoil anything because I've been spoiling everything at the beginning of these episodes. I am just drinking water, and so is Bobby. We're on our little health hydration journey right now. And do you have an affirmation for us today?
I do, and it's something that I've been practicing a lot. And what's for me will come to me effortlessly, which basically means let things be how they are, accept things for what they are. If you lose anything, that just means it's not for you. Whatever is for you will come to you effortlessly.
I like that. That's a very good one. Awesome. For those of you who are new to this podcast, all I'm going to ask is for you to please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching the video episode, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and all of our social media networks. It really helps out the show. So anyways, let's just jump into the episode. Bobby and I met when we were freshmen.
Yes, freshman in high school.
We were both in drama class. That's the only class that I really remember us being in. I'm sure we had more, like home ec or something.
I distinctly remember drama class because that was a very interesting class with a character of a teacher.
Right, yeah. That class was very interesting for me. I loved drama class. I actually looked forward to it every time we would have that class.
I enjoyed drama class too. I know during that period of my life, I was very much into rebelling and doing my own thing. But drama class was fun because you didn't have to pay attention a whole lot. And you kind of just got to socialize with pretty much everyone in that class. And that was the best part about it, I think so.
Yeah. It was very much a self-expressive type class. That teacher, he was good in different aspects, I think. But for the most part, he was kind of an asshole to us. But everyone was very quirky. People who were in drama class were kind of, I felt like the outcasts. But we all found community.
Absolutely.
Environment.
Drama people are a little bit different, wired a little bit differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that just shows their creative side. And everyone can have their own creative side. Everyone can have their own little quirks about them. Never fear being your own self. And I think drama can bring that out in people. And you should never feel embarrassed about just doing you.
Yeah, and expressing yourself. I think that's awesome. Were you just thrown into that class or did you choose it?
I actually chose it. For middle school, I always chose drama every single year. Just because I was always a little bit different. I felt like that was one way to express my differences, and I wasn't really a band type of person, so it's kind of like you either choose band or choose drama. And so I chose drama. What about yourself? Were you just thrown into that class, or did you choose it?
No, I was the same way. In middle school, I did theater, and that teacher was very interesting. She was also one of my language arts teachers. But I loved it because I could express myself in any way that I wanted to. And it was a really easy class, to be honest. Like, you memorize a couple of lines and whatever. And I always thought that I was going to be in some sort of performative type environment, like being an influencer or being a YouTuber, and I liked attention, so that was like my way of expressing.
Very honest. Sweet.
I have no Leo placements, surprisingly, but I liked being a little attention seeker, so that was my outlet.
Well, I mean, look at you now. You have YouTube and Spotify. You are an influencer, and it's growing. It's growing.
Thank you.
Baby
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Whatever future you want to create, the sky is literally the limit. As long as you know the goals that you want for yourself and you know how to get them. That's something that I stress so much for people. No matter how strange your passions may be, always follow them. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with them.
Yeah.
So if you want to be an influencer, or you want to be a rapper, or a YouTube star, work at fast food, or want to be a huge business person, never be afraid and never feel embarrassed for chasing your dreams. And also don't talk negatively about yourself about those things. So I am very big on positive self-talk and staying away from self-deprecation, because you have to be on your own side.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to dive into what you were going through freshman year?
Yeah, so for freshman year, is it okay if I backtrack a little bit?
Yeah, let's backtrack.
School?
Yeah.
So in middle school, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Shout out.
Shout out, Albuquerque, Berkey. So me and my mom moved up here. It had to have been almost the start of freshman year, and we kind of needed a high school for me to go to. And the place we moved in, it was like 5 minutes away. So I went there. It was really exciting because it was just something very new, not very familiar, and I really enjoy new stuff and being kind of thrown into new situations. Mm-hmm. And so for high school, I was really trying to find myself. Actually, I've been trying to find myself for many, many years. And high school was like a big one where I was just trying to fit in. I was looking for people to fit in with, because I've never felt like I fit in at certain places. The only problem with that is that can also lead to seeking the wrong type of attention. Mm-hmm. And it's okay if I delve into that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I was a drug addict. I guess I still am a drug addict. I guess it never goes away. I don't do them anymore. But I started doing drugs around when I was 13 years old. And the whole reason why is because I was just super lonely. I was the only child growing up. I always wanted brothers and sisters. I had cousins, but at the end of the day, I was still alone. Get my own house, either at my mom's house or at my dad's house, because they were separated, so I was still lonely. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of wanted to find my own people. I got into drugs. If you're into drugs, that's something you have in common with people. Like, as long as you have enough money to supply drugs, you're cool. You're okay with those people. And I was like, oh, well, I don't have to be lonely anymore because I have these people. And if I just make them happy, they won't go away. I was really chasing that. I chased that throughout middle school. I actually got expelled in middle school, 8th grade, for doing drugs. Then we moved up here. And I had no real plans to change, because I'm like, I know I can have this in common with people and I won't be lonely. I spent a lot of time at this skate park where, if you don't know, now you're going to know. That's where a lot of people who do drugs hang out. I spent a lot of time there. It was maybe like 10-minute walk from school.
We would just go through that forest area.
Yeah, it's just super convenient. Super convenient for the wrong reasons. I spent a lot of time there. And I would also spend a lot of time just doing drugs, even in school. Go to school high, stay high during school. I barely passed freshman class because I didn't really show up. Sophomore year, I really didn't care, because after freshman year, that summer, I actually started getting into methamphetamine. That really took me down a really, really dark place, and I really stopped caring. I was flunking every class, either because I was sleeping or I just didn't show up, or, like I said, I just really didn't care. Mm-hmm. My mom got an ultimatum from the school, because they were like, we know he's on drugs. He doesn't show up. We're going to give you a choice. Either you're going to send him to rehab or we're going to send him to rehab. So she made the decision. She's like, okay, he'll listen to me. I know he's not going to listen to you. So she took me to my first rehab. I got expelled for missing so many days. Maybe he was halfway or like a third of the way through sophomore year. Mm-hmm. Basically getting expelled. So I had to go to this place called Miller. Was it Miller Education?
Yep, I went there for 2 days.
Hey.
That's like the halfway house for schools.
Yes, it really is. Where it's just kind of, you do your GED work, or you do like your work, and then you go home. It's where the trouble kids go.
Yeah, I think it's an alternative school.
Yes, that's what they call it, alternative. Mm-hmm. So I went there. Since you could kind of leave whenever you wanted to, I really didn't take that seriously. I showed up maybe for like 10 minutes. Did a couple problems, turned it in, left. I was still doing meth, I was still doing drugs. The place I lived at, in the backyard, it was a pretty big backyard, there was actually a garage there where a lot of people partied, a lot of people did drugs, a lot of stuff happened there. It was called The Peak. Mm-hmm. And if you went to high school around the same time that we did, you probably know of it.
Yeah. We all hung out there and did drugs.
Yep.
Of all types.
Of all types. There was no rules. You could come and go whenever you wanted to. You could stop by when, like, you could do anything you really wanted to there. So it was like, it's perfect for people that wanted to rebel or get away from their house. The only problem was it's not a healthy influence on people at all. There's literally no rules. It's total anarchy there. But anyways, I kept doing drugs. I eventually got arrested when I was 15 years old. So I had to spend the night at juvenile detention center. If you don't know, that place is horrendous. They don't have beds. They have a metal bench that you basically sleep on. The guards there are very, very rude and mean to the inmates there. I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time there. Eventually, they transferred me, and they kind of gave me an option. They said, well, you can go to rehab, or you can go to juvenile prison. And I was like, that's an easy choice. I'll go to rehab again. So I went to rehab. It was 3.5 months. And I learned a lot about DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, as well as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. But the only issue was at that point, I was really, really good at lying to the system. And it was a manipulation technique that I learned. You seem lost at first, and then you go through a bunch of growth, and you make the people think that they're actually trying to help you, that they really helped you. And the key that I did is I knew I couldn't do it right away. It had to be over a good couple months span to convince them. But I mean, I got out. I did pretty good for quite a bit of time. I started living in Gladstone, Oregon, because my mom became a manager of a apartment complex. And so it was away from Hillsboro, which was a really huge trigger point area for me. And so I couldn't really make it out here that much except to go to the probation office, which I was getting drug tested 3 times a week. If you fail those drug tests, you're going away to juvenile detention center. That was basically the rules. So I kind of just made a rule for myself. I'm like, tell you what, I can't really hang out with anyone, or I can't stay out in Hillsboro or Beaverton that long. Otherwise, I want to go see what everyone else is up to, because a lot of people we know, they didn't necessarily get those breaks. They didn't get the rehab stints. They just kept doing what they were doing. I was curious on what they were up to. One day I decided, I'm like, I want to go see one of the friends I grew up with, see how they're doing. I messaged them. I go meet up with them. They're still doing their thing. They're still getting high. And they asked me if I want to. And I'm like, sure, why not? That was a horrible mistake on my part, because I got thrown in detention again, and I got sent to rehab again. It's hard to remember all this stuff, because the unfortunate part about doing so many drugs is it really messes with your memory. But went to another rehab. I got out, went right back to the same stuff, but I got off probation. So it's kind of free to do what I wanted to do. Turned 18. Honestly, my 18th birthday was horrendous. I was hanging out with my friend. She kicked me out of her house because she was just tired of me being there, and she wanted to go hang out with one of her friends. So she's just like, get the hell out of my house. I was like, oh, all right. Sounds great. What a wonderful 18th birthday. I just kept doing my thing for a little bit. And then my mom, she went to Texas to go stay with a friend for a little bit north of Dallas, just in a really country area. And she said, hey, tell you what, I'll fly you out here. You can get clean. You don't know anybody out here, which would be perfect. I took her up on that offer. The thing about it is, I always did drugs because I didn't want to be lonely. If you've done those harder drugs, you know just as well as I do that all the perks that you get from it are gone within a couple weeks, within maybe a month, and then all you do is stutter on words, whereas before you would just make conversation effortlessly, and you'd be super talkative and outgoing. You feel very fragile because you haven't eaten. For me personally, I would go schizophrenic if I stayed up too long, and I would actually see and talk to people that I thought were there, but they really were not there. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty scary. Despite how much I enjoyed the euphoric feeling, I also hated all of the cons that were presented with me. So I really enjoyed just kind of getting away, kind of taking a break, just to be able to enjoy food and sleep, honestly. So I took her up on that offer. I went to Texas. Then we drove to Colorado to go stay with my uncle for a couple months. That was really fun. I got to buy my first car there, which is a 96 Honda Accord. I learned how to drive manual. It was really funny to watch. And I'll say I had a really good time out there. Both me and my mom, we got really, really close out there as well, because I was on the straight and narrow, working and hanging out with family. I remember we were planning on leaving it in October, and my uncle, he's begging basically like, hey, don't leave. I don't want to see you throw your life away again, because I still had plans to come right back up here and basically throw my life away, but I didn't look at it as throw my life away. I was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my friends again. Now I got a car. Now I got money saved up. It's going to be way different. So I still had plans to basically throw my life away. And that's just simplifying it. At the time, I didn't look at it that way. I was like, oh, I want to go hang out with my friends again. I know they miss me. They have to, right? I've been gone for about 4 or 5 months. Anyways, came back up here, did the same type of stuff, met up with the same type of people. The only problem now is I had a car. If you're in the drug world, you know that if you have a car, you get introduced to a lot more people. I got introduced to a lot of very, very dangerous people and got into some very, very dangerous activities. Basically, I ended up going to prison for forgery, theft, and stealing a car. I want to say I was 19 years old. I just kind of looked at it as like, well, you know what? This is what happens with this life. You know, if you're in the drug world, it's kind of cool to go to prison because you kind of get to say that you did it, even though it's far from cool. It's terrible. What ended up happening is I took a plea deal for 18 months, and they told me, they're like, if you don't take this, it's going to be 2 years. So I was like, okay, that's a no-brainer. 1.5 years versus 2 years. Halfway through my sentence, I found out my mom had stage 4 ovarian cancer. She didn't want to break the news to me, but she's like, I really need to tell you this because we're honest about everything, because my mom was my best friend. I trusted her with everything. It was someone who I could talk to about anything, and she gave me the best advice ever. And she was just always very supportive, but she was also very, very stern with me as well. And I realized at that point, I need to stop messing my life up, and I need to be a really good son, basically for the first time in my life to her. So I got out. I started working immediately. I worked at construction companies, and I just took it very, very seriously. Companies just noticed my hard work, my determination, and I got on with this really good HVAC company. So I was doing heating and cooling. They sent me to trade school. They paid for it, which was really cool. And, you know, I was just on the straight and narrow. And then it was the year of 2020 when COVID was really, really rampant. And that was a very, very hard year for everyone. But I remember, I want to believe it was September 10th is when my mom passed. The chemo treatment wasn't working. Nothing was working. They told her she had 48 hours to live. She made it 2 weeks. She built up the strength to try to get everything just in order for me for when she passed. And she told me, she said, if there's one good thing that could come of me passing would be that you actually turn your life around. She's like, I'm very, very proud that you have. And she said, you know, keep going. And before she passed, I also made a promise to her because I was really getting into fitness, and that just kind of got me on the straight and narrow. And I told her, I was like, I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to do it competitively, and I promise to you that I will do the best that I can, and I will take it as far as I can go, and I will be a great bodybuilder. And she said that made her happy because she knew that as long as I kept doing that, I would not go back to ruining my life and being destructive of my own life. So she passed. That was hard. The crazy thing about life is it doesn't stop for anybody, and you have to just keep going. You have to almost put the blinders on, and it took me a bit to process what actually happened because I was able to take 3 days off from work, which I spent literally just moving, and then it was right back to the grind, right back to putting the blinders on. I eventually processed it fully, which was very helpful. I'm a huge believer in spirituality, and when you're dreaming, I also believe you're connected to not just past things but other dimensions as well. And if people can't communicate necessarily on this plane, they might be able to communicate in your dreams. Every now and then I do see her in my dreams, and I get to talk to her, and she tells me how proud she is of me, and I get to tell her everything. Those are sometimes the best dreams ever. Anyways, the year is 2023 now. is very exciting. I am doing everything that I can to progress my life. I've changed my outlook a lot on things. But even though I'm doing all the self-growth and self-help, all that type of stuff, that's something that's very, very important. And I don't think it's talked about enough when you get off drugs and when you stop those habits. You really need to take a deep, long look at yourself and your inner trauma and analyze, process, all that type of stuff. For a while, I blocked out a lot of stuff. Something that I actually came to terms with in 2022, and I finally admitted to someone for the first time, is when I was younger, I was actually molested. And I really blocked that out for a long time. If anyone is a sexual abuse survivor, they know how much that really messes with someone and how much you could really block that out from the world. It's unfortunate how common it is. But those are one of the things that you really have to sit there, process, grow from it, and realize that it's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. And there's nothing wrong with you. But that year of 2022, just because I was staying out of trouble doesn't mean mentally I was very strong. I was in a very, very self-deprecating place. I didn't really see certain good aspects about myself. Even though others will point them out to me, I would just be like, oh, well, it's not true because I don't believe it's true. And I actually met a good friend and very close friend. I'm always a huge believer in it doesn't necessarily matter how long you've known someone. It matters on the connection you have with that person at the moment. Because energies can change, life can change. And when you align with someone, it can seem like you've known them for a lifetime, even if you've only known them for a couple months. She saw that self-deprecating stuff, but she saw way more than that. And she helped me grow into becoming a better person for myself. Not for anyone else, but just changing my attitudes on how I view myself. And she taught me that anything you want to do, you can do it. As long as you put the work in, you manifest it. Obviously, you have to do certain steps to make it happen. But when you think negatively about yourself, change those patterns. Because if you're always poisoning your thoughts and your mind with negative self-talk, that's what's going to happen. You're going to literally create your own destruction. But if you're talking good about yourself, some people may look at it as arrogance. It's actually confidence, and it's actually learning to love yourself. And there's literally nothing wrong with saying that you love yourself, you love the route that you're taking, you love the journey that you're on, and you're very proud of yourself. Never let anyone tell you that you're a bad person for thinking like that. Make sure that you love yourself enough to want better for yourself. I will let you ask some questions if you have any.
Well, I want to say first off, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us when it comes to going through sexual abuse. I think that is something that I see a lot with people who go through addiction. I saw that in myself as well. And it takes a lot to fully admit that, because I think we put a lot of blame on ourselves as survivors. And it really sucks because the system is kind of set up that way, because we don't have the support. And a lot of the times our abusers don't get convicted.
No, or people just push it under the table. I know a lot of people that if it's a family member, other family members might just be, they're fine. But that's a big thing that I think parents, or honestly anyone who's around, always be protective of children. They can't process. They don't exactly know what's going on. If you see something that's really, really weird and questionable, don't be afraid to speak up about it. Like if a family member's getting too touchy, that's a huge red flag to me. It's gross and it's sick. Also, you learn a lot about how other people think by the things that they say. So actually listen. What might seem like a harmless comment that someone might make is actually a huge red flag that should definitely be paid attention to. Pay attention to the children. If they feel uneasy about something, there's probably something more going on there. With comments, something that I noticed, and to me it's a little odd, when people will make a comment about someone's body, and they'll just do it with their friends. There's a difference between complimenting someone's body and then just making a really outlandish comment. It's that's inappropriate. I don't really want to hear that. That's a red flag. It's a huge red flag. Something that was actually really gross to me was when the rapper Bad Baby, as soon as she turned 18, A lot of people subscribe to the OnlyFans. There's some people that make comments when she was 17 and they're like, oh, I just wish she was 18. That's not an okay comment to make.
Yeah.
And that's coming from like a mid-30s dude. All that tells me is the only reason that they haven't pursued that is because the law tells them they can't. That's kind of like a red flag to look at people. Women, if you're seeing a man or something and he makes those type of comments, that's something to definitely watch out for.
Especially if you have children.
Yes, children, little siblings. There's honestly countless stories of creepy people. There's things that you really should pay attention to and watch out for. And don't just push under the rug like, oh, they're just that way. Like, no, they're not just that way. Like, there's actually something going on.
It's also an addiction, too. Like, I think a lot of men who, well, I don't want to just categorize men in this, too, because I know that women can have this issue, too. Like sex addictions or porn addictions, too. That's something, to me, that could easily lead down a path of destruction. I mean, really, any addiction can consume you.
It definitely can. As an addict, I tend to put my addictions into something else. For me, I can't personally just get rid of it. So for me, I put it into bodybuilding, which is something productive. I also put it into my job, which is also very, very productive and is going to get me further along in where I want to be in life. So if you have a very addictive personality, I would say put it in something that's going to further your life in a direction that you want to go into. Mm-hmm. Don't waste your time with doing all the drugs. There's a bunch of outlets. I would say go have fun being with people. Obviously be safe, but try to channel into something productive that's going to further along yourself and your own journey.
Yeah. How do you stay sober?
Interestingly enough, I don't go to meetings, which a lot of people find pretty odd. If I want to, I could go to the bar and have one drink. Or if I'm having trouble sleeping, I will hit THC pen. But the main thing that just keeps me on the straight and narrow is I always have to think, personally for me, what's going to further along myself in my own bodybuilding journey? I know that going to the bar every day is terrible and not conducive. If I do have a drink, that's maybe once a year, if that. Basically, I just have to think, what's going to keep me on the path that I'm on? I know if I go out and go get high on hard drugs, that's going to ruin all of the work that I put into, because I'm not one of those type of people that can just go to work. If I was doing drugs, I would say, why would I go to work when I'm doing this? What's the point? So you really just kind of have to find a reason within yourself of why you're choosing not to pursue getting high or doing drugs or drinking, whatever your problem may be. I know a lot of people, meetings do help, but you also have to do a lot of self-growth within yourself. Yeah. You can't just stop doing the drugs, because if you see at meetings, everyone there is drinking a fuck ton of coffee, and they will freak out if the coffee runs out. It's actually kind of funny to watch. Find out what works for you and do that. Don't just listen to what someone else has to say. If you're really big into spirituality, get with people that are really big into that. Whatever you really want to do, find those type of people and surround yourself with them. There's always going to be ones that don't take themselves that seriously. Find the ones that do take themselves seriously, though. If you take yourself seriously, everyone else is going to take you seriously, and you're going to further along your own personal journey. The best way for me to explain how I stay on the straight and narrow is I surround myself with people that have what I want. I surround myself with a lot of fitness people. I surround myself with myself. It took me a long time for me just to be comfortable with my own company, because my thoughts were not always so kind to me. And that's where that self-help, that self-growth, learning to love yourself. Once you find comfort in your own company, I think that's one of the best and most powerful things that you can do for yourself. Yeah.
Being surrounded by people who are like-minded and keep you accountable on your journey. I don't think you should surround yourself by yes men. That's what I have learned. It's fine to have those friends every once in a while when you want to while out, but you have to have people in small doses, I think. Know the people that you're going to be around and
Absolutely.
that keep you in a state of progression.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge thing, is to just always want to progress and want more and better for yourself. You should want the best for yourself because you are the best. Want the best for yourself because you are the best you that you can be. Another thing, don't let someone make fun of you for whatever type of passion you you have.
Yeah.
I know that was a big thing for me. I used to be very self-conscious. I know a lot of people are very self-conscious about their passions and what they love to do. But here's the thing. Once you get out and you meet more people, you find out everyone has their like own little weird passions. And it's actually really cool. It really doesn't matter what it is, but it's always exciting for me to see someone that's super passionate. Mm-hmm. Even if I don't find it interesting, I always admire. I'm like, oh, that's so cool that you actually like love doing that.
Yeah.
And you're not afraid to be yourself.
I know. I love when people are excited about their little quirky things. Everyone has quirks. We're all weird. It's okay to be weird. It's actually cool to be weird.
Absolutely.
So I was the same way. We were always really weird, and freshman year in our class, we're definitely always the people in the corner.
And it's funny because that's drama class where everyone's weird.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're a weirdo among weirdos, you're really weird.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, though.
Yeah, you gotta find your people. I've always been the type of person to go into those classes that everyone makes fun of, and you meet the most interesting, smart, fun, caring, loving people who just want to build a community.
Absolutely. And if you have the luxury of being in a big city, I mean, I like to call Portland a small big city. It does have plenty of like little things. It has plenty of little clubs where you can find your people. Don't be scared to go check them out, because those people are just as excited to meet more of their own people as you are to meet them. And there would be no judgment there.
Well, is there anything else you want to leave our audience with?
Actually, a really good quote that I found from someone. I love bodybuilding posing a lot, and it's kind of my art form. And some people find it really odd and weird, but some people find it really, really cool. And my favorite person in the industry who does it, she actually has this quote, and she says, if they don't believe in you, fuck them. Mm-hmm. Which I love that, because you should only want to be around people that truly believe and see the greatness in you. Mm-hmm. I guess that's an affirmation too.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
I actually have it on a sweater too. Your people that are there for you, that will support you, that believe in you and see greatness in you. That is the best piece of advice I could give to anyone.
Do you want to tell us about your bodybuilding? You
Sure.
just compete? You did a competition?
I did. I just competed for the first time. It was so much fun. I went to drive out to Redmond, Oregon, which is really, really pretty. It's one of those cool, like, little towns. Like, it has like Safeway, it has like Walmart or Fred Meyer, and it has all these tiny little quirky shops, and I love those type of things. And there's like mom and pop restaurants where I love to go to those places because I always say there's a really, really good ingredient in food, and I got this from my mom. It's an ingredient that you can't buy at a store, but it's called love. Mm-hmm. And you can tell when people actually put it in there because the food just tastes so much better. So I went to one of those restaurants after I competed. It was amazing. I got 4th place in my class out of 6, which I did get a medal for, which is pretty cool. It was a really good experience. I plan on stepping on stage again next year. I would like to be a professional in the sport in the coming years, even though it takes time.
We will be cheering you on.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, 4th place is awesome. For your first competition.
Yes, for my first one. So,
yeah. Awesome.
Next one, we're definitely going to go for first. The only thing I will say about bodybuilding is I learned a lot about myself when I was dieting hard. I really did find the type of people that were there for me, loved me, and wanted the best for me. So if you're into bodybuilding, I would definitely suggest going through a prep yourself, competing, because it's a great experience. And I'm also just a big advocate of take care of yourself. Like, you don't have to bodybuild. You don't have to do a strict diet. You don't have to do any of that type of stuff. But just be really mindful about what you put into your body, in the sense of it's going to affect a lot about your mood. It's going to affect how much longevity you have. It's crazy, a lot of the chemicals that they just put in stuff nowadays that a lot of people just don't even know about. Be mindful, but also enjoy your life.
What got you into bodybuilding?
There was this really famous bodybuilder, and I follow him on Instagram. His name's Kai Green. I enjoyed fitness, and I was also like, I wonder how I could like get paid to like do this. But I saw a posing video he did, and I was just like blown away, and I was like, that is like really, really cool art. And I'm a huge fan of art. I used to draw. I wasn't necessarily that good, but I've always had a huge appreciation for when someone has such a passion and they can make something out of almost nothing. And when they put so much raw emotion into something, so posing, I see that big time. I watched that video and I was like, oh wow, I really want to get into this, but I had no idea how. Eventually I started going to the gym that I go to now.
Absolutely.
O'Malley's Gym. It's an amazing mom and pop gym. The owners, Tim and Julie, are super amazing. They're great people. They're always getting new equipment. They really care about all of their members. They care about all of their athletes. And it's a really good community to have for bodybuilding, because the community, it can be a little cliquey. But over there, it's kind of like if you're in that community, you're like family. So those are the type of people that I surround myself with. That's, I guess, my club. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on. It's been great to catch up with you, and I enjoyed hearing your story, and I think a lot of people are going to find healing in this as well. Thank you for allowing us to hold space. And congratulations on your awesome competition. Where can people find you?
They could find me on Instagram at Bobby_bounce_back. I believe that's my
Bobby
handle.
Bounce Back.
Bobby Bounce Back. And
yeah.
the reason I have that is because no matter what adversity I might face, I will always find a way to bounce back from it.
I love it. We love branding. That's awesome. Okay, love you. Bye.